Thousands of Syrian rebel fighters have disavowed the moderate opposition. Instead, they're filling the ranks of the al-Qaeda-linked extremist camp. They've joined the growing chorus of armed voices calling for an Islamic State in Syria. Around 100,000 opposition fighters are split into three main groups, united only in their determination to bring down the Syrian government. But while President Assad's forces push back against the militant onslaught, those factions are also fighting amongst themselves. Al-Qaeda-linked elements, the more moderate Salafists and the secular Free Syrian Army don't see eye to eye on the country's future. Let's talk about this now with journalist Gearóid Ó Colmáin, who's been closely following the developments in Syria. Hi there, good evening. Hope you can hear me. It's a major setback for Syria's secular opposition, this squabbling now, isn't it?
Good evening. Well, yeah, they've been fighting among themselves now for quite a long time. I guess this is what we can expect, really, from these types of groups. We're talking about criminal gangs, essentially, looting and committing massacres and blaming those massacres on the Syrian government. This has been a methodology used by the so-called rebels since the very start. And now, just like gangland warfare, they're essentially fighting among themselves. They don't even know what they want. They're fighting over the spoils. They're talking about Islamic Sharia law, but what type of Sharia law? Well, it's probably something like Saudi Arabia. They have different sources of funding, different sources of income. This is absolute chaos now, but I think this is pretty much what the West wanted, and this is pretty much what was envisioned at the very, very start of this conflict.
The thought that maybe they're somehow preferring al-Qaeda to Assad, because the longer this goes on, the more this squabbling happens, the more some of the factions get harder. That's what could end up happening. Is that really what the West wants as they continue to back the rebels?
I think the strategy of the West has been a strategy of attrition. That is to say, send in as many terrorist groups as you can, create absolute chaos, bring the country to its knees, try to break the resistance of the Syrian people. We have to remember that this is a government that has over 70% support from the Syrian people. And we know that even from NATO sources. So it's not this isn't even in question. Assad has had the support of Syrian people since the very, very start. These rebels have no popular support. That has been the the problem from the very start. And so the only way to capture, to conquer the country, is to bring it to its knees through through sending in these terrorist groups. And so chaos has been part of a strategy. This is essentially a strategy of chaos, creative destruction.
And as far as the opposition goes, the longer this goes on, I guess that it's more likely that they're going to get more hardline, more radical, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, there is a myth circulating about this, about radical groups. Look, these radical groups are there from the start. We're hearing a lot in the Western press about groups becoming radical and getting radicalized. Nonsense. These groups have been sent in from by the Arab states, by the Gulf states in particular, for Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of Chechens there. There's well over 129 countries. Last count, that's going up all the time. I think it's gone up since. These are radical fanatics, and always were. So it's not a case of them becoming more radical. They've always been radical. The West has always supported Islamic fundamentalism in countries it seeks to take over. We saw this in Afghanistan. We saw it in Libya. And we saw it in Yugoslavia.
Of course, it's sold as freedom and democracy.
We're seeing it now again in Syria. This is a strategy. It's been an extractive. Of course, it's called human rights as well, and we have human rights groups, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch and everything, providing propaganda cover for a very, very nasty war of aggression, which is the supreme crime. The supreme crime under international law is to wage a war of aggression. And one of the key propaganda instruments of the West is to use human rights groups like Amnesty International, which they've co-opted, and Human Rights Watch, to blame the atrocities committed by these groups on the Syrian government. They've been doing it from the start. They've been caught doing it, and you would really have to be pretty obtuse not to see it now if you're following this conflict closely.
Thanks for your thoughts.
And I've been
Thanks for your thoughts on the programme,
atrocities.
sir. I do appreciate it. We know you have, and we really appreciate you being on the programme. Gearóid Ó Colmáin there. Thanks very much from Paris.
You're welcome.
Greece has once again been hit by mass protests. This time it's not about the economy, though. We've seen so much of that in the past. Now it's parties and unions holding nationwide anti-fascist demonstrations. Meantime, Greek police are continuing to investigate dozens of alleged fascist attacks by members of the country's far-right Golden Dawn party. Let's get reaction about this now from Katerina Vlachou, who's a youth section leader at GSEE. That's one of the trade unions that organised the rally we're seeing. Hi there, thanks for being on the programme. It's nice to have you on RT. What are you hoping to achieve from these protests?
Thank you, first of all. Good evening from Athens, and thank you for your invitation. We want to stand up and declare that we're against any kind of racism and fascism in our country.